How's it going, guys? I'm here to review Leprechaun Origins 2014. So Leprechaun Origins is a soft reboot to the Leprechaun movies, and it doesn't feature Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun for the first time. Instead, it features Hornswoggle, a WWE star or performer, wrestler, to star as the Leprechaun. And this is when things starts to go south. So the plot for this movie: a group of kids, Sophie, Dave, Jen, and fuck, I forgot the other. These characters are pretty forgettable. I'm surprised I remember three of the characters' names, and they're just visiting Ireland to see the sights, to see to know the history of Ireland. Of course, they go to a pub, and that's when they meet the townspeople. Of course, one of the townspeople was curious of what they were conversating about, so they're like, you guys want to know some history? You guys want to see the Stone of the Gods? Pretty much the Stone of the Gods is the thing that keeps the Leprechaun away in this movie, apparently. But he says it's the sight to see, and he'll give them a cabin in the middle of nowhere to spend the night, and so that way they can go on a hike to see this monument figure for, of course, for their reports or whatever. So most of the group agreed to go do this, except for one. So they go later on. They went to the cabin, and that's when the dudes, they're like, okay, we'll get you the next day or whatever, not knowing that they were locked from the outside. So pretty much the townspeople, they just locked them in the cabin so that way the leprechaun go get them. Because apparently the townspeople, they moved in this area even before, like, the stone that keeps the leprechaun away was always there before the townspeople arrived. So when the townspeople arrived, of course, that's when they discovered the gold and the tunnel mines and blah blah blah. But as the leprechaun creature starts killing the townspeople one by one, they have no choice to just do a sacrifice, so that way they won't have to leave their lands and they can still be rich or whatever. They have to make amends, sacrifices to the leprechaun. So that's why in this situation they put these characters in the cabin, so that way the dude can leave a gold watch outside of the cabin, kind of like I guess the gold can call a leprechaun, and then so the leprechaun grabs the gold or the golden watch, and then that's when it tries to capture or chase after these teens and kills them off one by one. And of course, as they escape, not only the leprechaun's chasing after them, but the townspeople's chasing after them too. So yeah.
Well, I can see why this isn't a tourist destination.
This village is only like 300 years old.
Whoa. Now that's creepy.
So that's the plot pretty much. What did I think of this movie? Okay, I'm just gonna call the elephant in the room. This is pretty bad choice not having Warwick Davis as the leprechaun. Because even the leprechaun doesn't even look like the leprechaun we all know and love. Instead, it looks like a fucking creature from The Descent. That's how... even when they do show it, they barely show it in this film. Like, they show flashes of this Descent creature. I call it the skin crawler. So, instead of calling it a leprechaun, because it doesn't look like a leprechaun, it just looks like a skin crawler from The Descent. So, when they do show the skin crawler in this movie, it's so cheaply made. You can tell that they're trying not to focus on it too much. Like when the skin crawler's attacking these kids, it's like flashes of the skin crawler, like quick scenes and quick little flashes of him just chasing after them. Basically, they're not showing like full authentic scenes of just like revealing how like the whole body looks and how this whole... I mean, they do show the face and him, the skin crawler, like chasing after these kids, like running and like slashing and whatever, but it's all like quick images and it's very cheap. So in a way, I guess due to their budget, you can tell that they're trying real hard not to show the skin crawler that much, which was painfully obvious. But other than that, still this movie's really not that good. I will say this movie is darker than the other ones. It's kind of brutal. Some of the kills in this movie is actually spot on. some of the special effects is kind of good, but at the same time, it kind of mixes it with CGI blood, which I do not like CGI blood that much, but uh, it's whatever. I mean, I'm used to it by now. But yeah, like I said, some of the kills are pretty creative. Like the spine kill or the axe to the face kill. Like those kills are pretty cool. But the plot that I just told you guys, it just does not feel like a Leprechaun movie. Instead, it just feels like any other like creature feature or just a creature horror movie. It just does not fit for this franchise. This movie is totally different. It's like doing its own thing. It's like a different movie. And it's like, I don't know. As a different movie, it's not that bad. But for a Leprechaun movie, for a Leprechaun entry that's part of this franchise, this is really not that good. And especially if you're expecting to see like an authentic Leprechaun sequel to the other movies, then you're not gonna get it here, because this movie is pretty much a soft reboot. Does not like mention any of the other movies. Does not have Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun. Shoot, even the Leprechaun looks different. It's a skin crawler, for crying out loud, from The Descent. So this is like a completely different movie. All the gold lore and the Leprechaun lore is just thrown in, and that's it. This is a completely different movie, in my opinion. It kind of like, does it work? Part of the Leprechaun franchise? Hell no, it does not work. But as its own movie, it's really not that bad as its own movie. But for a Leprechaun movie that's part of this franchise, this movie is pretty underwhelming, disappointing, and it just sucks.
It's a 7-hour hike from here. But you could always stay in one of the cabins down the road.
Cabin in the woods. What's not delayed? Did you hear that?
Even some of the characters are pretty bland. They're kind of forgettable. And some of these characters are so fake. Like, what I mean by fake is, like, one of them gets injured, and of course all the other friends just leaves them behind. So that's a fake friend. Wouldn't go out for your back, like, you know what I mean? That's just fake. They would leave their own friend behind for the Leprechaun. Just kept on running. That's just, wow. The cinematography for this movie, like the little shots of Ireland in the beginning of this movie, it looks beautiful. But there are, I mean, even though some of the cinematography, like I said, is beautiful, there's other scenes where it's just looks cheap, like cheaply made, how it's like choreographed. Ugh. Like, really, like, the only good cinematography in this movie is really the shots of Ireland. Everything else just looks like it was shot for like a sci-fi movie on the Sci-Fi Channel. Even some of the camera shots of the Leprechaun's POV just look fucking cheap. Speaking of the Leprechaun POV, like, I guess he's like the Predator, because like he sees the heat vision of like people's like thermal body, but instead of red like in the Predator movies, it's like yellow, like resembling gold, which is kind of stupid. And there's even, like I said, there was a cool kill, but it's a kill that is a ripoff. Remember I mentioned the spine? The Leprechaun grabs one of the victims and takes its spine out. Totally like the Predator. Ugh. So the special effects is alright. Some of the cinematography for Ireland's alright. The story by itself, it's not that bad, but for a Leprechaun movie, it's pretty bad, especially if it has nothing to do with the other movies in this franchise, especially having the name Leprechaun in the title.
There's something out there.
It's locked.
So what would I give this movie out of 10? I would give this movie a 5 out of 10. For its own movie, it's really not that bad by itself, but like I said, for a movie that's part of the Leprechaun franchise with the Leprechaun name, this is pretty bad. Like, it kind of sucks. So that was my quick review of Leprechaun Origins 2014. Please leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And I'll see you guys in the last Leprechaun movie.
Guys.
What is that thing?
Twatha de Dana.
What does that mean?
Leprechaun.
He's coming!
Sorry to give you such a scare.